Houston might have lost the national championship to Florida, but Andy, they just got an even bigger honor. The Cougs are number 1 in our way too early top 25.
You are Locked On College Basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? Happy Monday. Welcome into the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, the only daily national college hoop show out there. We're your hosts. That's Andy Patton. I'm Isaac Shade, and you're joining us at the place to get your college basketball content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for making us your first listener watch to get your Monday and your week going the right way. Reminder, you can catch every single episode ad-free on Amazon Music. Want to give a special shout out to all the everydayers hanging out with us, all the great members of the Locked On College Basketball Discord as well. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That is insane, Andy. I love that. Hey, as we get into today's show, we're a week after the national championship, and we want to shout out some folks that really did well at the top of the Locked On College Basketball Bracket Challenge. Coming and sweeping us all, Mr. Matt Cogswell. Congratulations, Matt. You're the man. Now, number 2 and number 3 don't really count because it's Leaf Tulane coming in at 2, and this joker, Andy Patton, coming in at number 3. So fine, y'all did good, whatever. We're skipping past you. The real number 2 in this thing, Brian Taylor coming in at 3rd, Cam Swap coming in at 4th, Blake Widmer, who we got to shout out because he puts this thing together every year. Thank you, Blake. Boiler up, my man. And then tied at 5th is Parker Ainsworth, the great host of Locked On Houston Cougars, which, hang on to that, we're coming right back around, tied with Brandon Turner. So congrats to all of you for being wildly smarter about the bracket than me, who came in 21st. All right, Andy. Today, we are rolling with our way too early top 25. We've given it about a week's breath following the end of the tournament so that we could start to see at least a little bit of the lay of the land of where guys are going to go before we start rolling this out. We might have to update it a couple times as the offseason goes along, and that's great and good and all that. But to timestamp it, these projections are based on where things are at today, Monday, April 14th. Hope your taxes are in. Happy Tax Day Eve, everybody. All right, Andy. Our top 10, Houston, Duke, Purdue, Texas Tech, UConn, Michigan, BYU, Louisville, and Kentucky. And number 10, the Arizona Wildcats. I want to start right at the top, Andy, because we got 2 teams that were in the Final Four. Houston, who beat Duke in the semifinals, and then Houston, who got beat by Florida in the national championship. Mr. Patton, you and I both had the Cougars at number 1 in our polls individually before we aggregated. Obviously, they're still at the top. Why is Kelvin Sampson right back at the top?
Yeah, even with Milos Uzan expected to leave and go to the NBA draft, I like this Houston roster. I like having JoJo Tugler coming back. I think that's huge for them. They go get Pop Isaacs in the transfer portal, who I think is going to be a really quality fit in Sampson's system. He's kind of that LJ Cryer, Jamal Shed type replacement. You know, I think those are obviously really big shoes to fill, but we've seen Isaacs be at the very least, a fantastic scoring guard. I think some of the other elements of that offense will take him a little bit longer, but he's going to have a whole offseason to get ready and kind of take on that role. But I think the big thing too for Houston is they have a tremendous freshman class coming in as well. Kingston Flemings and Isaiah Harwell are both going to be, this team would be in really good shape if both those guys were starting. And now with Isaacs coming back, I think one of those guys is probably going to end up coming off the bench. And and then they have a really great big coming in, Chris Senac in the front court. Yeah, I really like what this roster, and Sharp's coming back. I know they lost Terrence Arson out of the transfer portal, but I really like the blend of veteran talent, of returners, of high-level incoming players, incoming freshmen, I should say, for Sampson. And I think at the end of the day, too, like when you're doing these way too early rankings, like you're basing it a lot off of the coaching staff and their ability to be successful in the modern era. Like, maybe this roster is not complete, but I know that they're going to be able to get the pieces to fit around them type of thing. And Houston has done it so consistently in the last half decade. So even without a high profile freshman class coming in, I think I would be really high on this team, but that is kind of the cherry on top and why they're sitting at the very top for me.
Andy, for me, one of the biggest holes to fill is the Jawan Roberts, like Coach Sampson on the floor type role. Mm-hmm. Is that Emmanuel Sharp? I've been trying to think who that is next year.
That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, it's not exactly Tugler, but maybe it could be. I do think that Sharp kind of embodies a lot of that for this team. I do worry a little bit. Like they're gonna lose some of the depth guys, and typically what Houston is so good at is guys kind of developing behind the scenes and then blossoming in year 3 or year 4, and like that's why the Arsenault loss I think hurts a little bit more. Like he wouldn't have had a huge role this year because of those freshmen coming in, but like I think we're going to see some other departures as well, and so I do think that could hurt them long term. But I think in the short term for next year, I think they're still going to be in good shape. But yes, I do agree they need some kind of leadership, like veteran presence to kind of really step up in a major way. And we're used to seeing that in the front court, and maybe it'll still end up being somebody in the front court. But yeah, Sharp, if he were to step into that role, I think would be more than capable.
Andy, obviously the Duke Blue Devils come off of a Final Four appearance, and obviously we don't. It's funny, all this back, like, is Cooper Flagg maybe going to sit? Come on, what are we doing? Cooper Flagg's not staying.
He gone.
he gone. But look, Duke brings back a lot, and obviously they're going to get a lot too. I mean, it's pretty insane. Like projections right now are that Tyrese Proctor's back. I think there's a lot of buzz that Isaiah Evans might leave. I think maybe some of that's died down. And then finally, like I still don't think. I know Caleb Foster's probably going to stick around. I still don't think he didn't live up to it this year. I don't think he will again. And now he's going to have Caden Boozer pushing him for those lead guard duties, which is part of what I thought Duke's issue maybe was this year is they didn't have a true point guard. Baby, that's Caden Boozer. And I don't know if he's ready to do it as a freshman, but he and Cam have played together long enough that I really think they can. Patrick Ngangba came along really well late in the season. Didn't really get much burn in that loss to Houston, but I think he can step in there to fill that role left by Malawach. And then you've still got Malik Brown. Like he could push for that starting 5 spot. You got Nick Homenia and Shelton Henderson coming in, 2 other really, really good freshmen. I can't wait to see what this Duke team does to follow up this Final Four run.
Yeah, I'm very excited about Duke. And I think, we've seen John Shire prove that you can do really good things with very young teams, and I think this team's going to be young again next year. That's kind of the way it's trending. But one of the things I loved about Shire's offseason last year, and that I feel confident he'll do a good job of again this year, is filling out the gaps with like veteran guys, like guys who've been there before, like the Sion Jameses and the Mason Gillis, and you mentioned Malik Brown, who's expected to be back. So like whatever other players they do lose or whatever holes they need to fill, I have a lot of confidence in Duke's ability to identify the right players, but then also go get them with NIL money and everything. And I think that's why I feel very confident about Duke right now as compared to some other teams where it's like, even like a Florida team that's farther down on our rankings coming off a national championship. They have more holes to fill, but it's also like, I want to see the proven ability to fill those holes and find the right pieces. And like, I think Todd Golden's probably going to end up being pretty good at that. But like, until we see it, it's kind of like I'm a little bit more skeptical, especially when you're talking about doing way too early rankings in mid-April. Like we don't know what these rosters look like yet. So we're kind of basing it off of like how they've done in the past. And Shire's proven to be very good at this.
Andy, we could have fun and in-depth conversations about each one of these teams, and we will throughout the postseason. We have Purdue at 3. They return a whole bunch. Texas Tech gets JT Toppin back. UConn bringing in some nice stuff. We have Michigan at 6. That's curious to me. There's some interesting, but the place you and I are the most different on in the top 10 is at 9 and 10 with Kentucky, where you have them 5, I have them 14, and then Arizona, where you have them 18 and I have them 7. Kind of funny. We have Louisville and Kentucky at 8 and 9 like that. Andy, why do you think we're so different from one another on both Kentucky, a 9-spot difference, and Arizona, an 11-spot difference?
I think for me, at least, I'm more willing to buy into what I think this Kentucky roster will eventually look like. Whereas if you're basing it off of what it currently looks like, it is definitely harder to have them that high. We just found out Brandon Garrison's coming back, which is huge, but they obviously lost so many pieces. They had so many 5th-year guys, 4th-year guys on that roster. So we knew they were going to have to do a ton of replacement. They got some freshmen coming in, but they're not getting a Caden Lewis, but they're getting Jasper Johnson and Malachi Moreno. And that's a great class for them. And then obviously I think you'll see leaps from Colin Chandler and Perry and some of those younger, or Noah, some of those younger guys on that roster. And I think that the combination of Mark Pope's ability to develop talent, The fact that they go out and get a Jalen Lowe from Pitt, who I think is going to be tremendous in that system. They go get I think that this team has already made some move or acquaintance. That's a huge monster addition for them. Like the moves they've already made, I'm feeling really confident about, and I'm a believer in the amount of money that they have and Pope's ability to identify the right talent. That I think they're going to be in great shape. Whereas with Arizona, it's kind of the flip of that. They have a lot of young players on their roster. Like they're going to probably start a couple of freshmen. I'm not sure I buy into Tommy Lloyd's ability to get freshmen to have huge seasons right away. Carter Bryant was good last year, and he's still going to probably be an NBA draft pick. But like he was, it was a little inconsistent. So for me, I'm not sure that an Arizona roster that lost a lot of veteran talent that is going to rely a lot on freshmen I'm not super confident in it. I think, a few months from now when we see the full roster, we'll have a better idea, but that's why I'm a bit more skeptical on Arizona.
Yeah. And I think a big question is going to be the chemistry of are Braden Burries and Koa Pete, for example, are they going to be willing to defer to Jaden Bradley and to Krivas and to Owaka at times, or when is it their time to cook, and do the older guys so, Tommy Lloyd's ability to make that happen well, I think will be critical to success. And that's going to be interesting, Andy. I think one thing we know, though, is that both their floor and their ceiling are probably a little more solidified because we don't have CLE for the first time in a couple of years. And that's very sad for all of us, Andy. Really interested to see from both of those teams that we have more discrepancy on how the rosters continue to form and then what we think of them as we get closer to November.
Well, Isaac, we just had Louisville and Kentucky at 8 and 9, like you mentioned. A man that coached both those schools. He's now at a different school, and that team is next up in our way too early top 25, coming in at number 11. We'll talk about that in just a second. But first, folks, have you ever checked your bank account and wondered, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. And that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. And Monarch Money isn't just another budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. And instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. My wife and I always want to make sure that we are on the same page when it comes to our finances. And thankfully, with Monarch Money, managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without all the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. All right, Isaac, coming back in here, looking at teams 11 through 25 in our aggregate way too early top 25 rankings for the 2025-26 college basketball season. And we teased it, St. John's, Rick Pitino, the man who coached both Kentucky and Louisville, now with the Johnnies. They are at number 11 in our way too early top 25. Isaac, let's start with the Johnnies before we get into the rest of this list. A team that was the only 2 seed to not advance to the Elite Eight last year, but obviously a tremendously successful season for Pitino in year 2 for the Johnnies. What do you expect from this team in year 3?
Well, it's Rick Pitino and period. We have them do what?
Probably a national championship.
Yeah. And look, we have them, if I'm not missing anybody, the second highest Big East team in our rankings behind UConn at 5. I know St. John's loses a good bit with Kadari Richmond out the door, Davon Smith out the door, Aaron Scott, who I think was a little bit overlooked. RJ Lewis, obviously, out the door and understandable after what happened down the stretch there. By the way, really curious to see where he ends up when the dust all settles on this thing. But what St. John's brings in is Bryce Hopkins. Simeon Wilcher probably takes a big step forward. And the return of Zuby, man, I think that's huge. I think he's going to have a monster year. And that's good. Andy, I think a lot of this for me comes down to, I trust Rick Pitino. And outside of UConn, I don't necessarily look up and down next year's Big East and see somebody that's really going to give them a big fat push. I think folks think Georgetown might move higher, but I trust Rick Pitino.
Yeah. I'm intrigued by Villanova with Kevin Willard, and I'm intrigued by. I mean, I don't think we can discount Marquette or Creighton too much, but yes, I'm with you on St. John's. They also bring in Josan Sanone from Arizona State, who I think is going to step into a bigger role. Him and Wiltshire, I think, is a solid backcourt. And we also know that as we're recording this right now, they're in the mix for Xavion Lee from Princeton.
That's right.
There are a lot of other schools in the mix for Xavion Lee, and I don't know if it'll end up at St. John's, but if he does, that's a huge boost for them. But Zuby and Hopkins in the front court is tremendous. I think this team's going to be in really good shape.
I fully expect this roster to look different by the time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Looking down the list a little bit more, we got a pair of SEC powerhouses at 12 and 13, Auburn at 12, Bama at 13. Tom Izzo and the Spartans of Michigan State come in at number 14. We were very close together on all three of those teams, but here's where we have an incredibly huge divide, and I think I'll probably have to explain myself more than you will, Isaac. But 15, we have Mick Cronin and the UCLA Bruins. The Mick Bruins, they come in at 15. You had them fourth. I did not have them ranked. I'll let you start, and then I will explain myself after that.
Okay. A lot of it is, Andy, I really was impressed this year with the trio of Sky Clark, Eric Daly, and Tyler Bilodeau. I thought they did a lot. I think another year under Mick Cronin puts them in a really good spot. And I just felt, though, that they were missing like the dude. And now they've got somebody that I think is an absolute dude that could easily be a first-team All-American this year in Donovan Dent. I think my one question is the coexistence of he and Sky Clark. Like, how does that go for them? We got to see. I'm not a huge believer in Xavier Booker, but I think the other four, like if he's the starting five along with those four, I think he's serviceable enough to help that, right? The question then for me becomes, what else and who else do they add beyond that? How is because I like that starting five, if that is the starting five. But I need to see 6 through 8. And I think that is, for me, the difference between whether they're fourth where I have them or maybe down to like 15th.
Right. And for me with UCLA, Mick Cronin has gotten talented players in the transfer portal before. And for the most part, we've seen guys kind of stall out. I know Tyler Bilodeau had a big year last year, and Sky Clark, was good last year. But I'm just concerned that like a lot of the offensive struggles that this team has almost been in spite of the talent that they've had. And
Sure.
I think we're obviously seeing UCLA be more willing to spend money and be more willing to add super talented players. But they did that last year, and it didn't go very well. And they sputtered throughout the season, and there was a lot of they seem to struggle with the travel. At least that's what Mick Cronin was blaming it on, because he's certainly not going to blame it on himself. We know that. Donovan Dent is extraordinarily talented. I wonder how the fit works with Clark. And you alluded to the depth, and I think that's my big concern too. Like Sebastian Mack's gone, Dylan Andrews is gone, and Damar is gone. Those guys were all like, Lazar Stefanovic is gone. Like they had like depth options that they really kind of relied on that are all out the door. They'll replace them, but then you're going to have a roster that doesn't have a ton of continuity. So to me, I'm just skeptical. Maybe I'm too skeptical. Maybe they should be in the back half in the 20s or something like that. But in a competitive conference, when they didn't seem to handle conference play all that well last year, like I'm not sure that I'm ready to boost them a huge amount because of one Donovan Dent, but we'll see what this roster looks like in a month or 2 months, and certainly maybe have a different opinion. But right now I'm just not quite there yet with this team. I'm not an Xavier Booker believer. I think that if he's their starting center, I think that's going to be problematic for them. I just don't think that he doesn't look like he didn't ever really look like he found himself at Michigan State. I'm hard pressed to believe that'll happen at UCLA. Happy to be wrong if that's the case, but the combination of that just makes me a little weary of this team at this point.
Andy, our other two biggest points of departure in the top 20 are Kansas. I have them 23rd. You have them 13th. And Iowa State, you have them unranked. I have them 11th. Same kind of question we did with Kentucky and Arizona. What for you has you higher on Kansas than me and you lower on Iowa State than me?
Yeah, Flory Badunga coming back for Kansas is just so huge. If he wasn't coming back, I think I would probably have them 23rd. Like honestly, like right where you have them. Like I think that's, and I'm definitely weary of Kansas. I mean, the last 2 years have been bad, and Bill Self is a phenomenal coach. He deserves more than the benefit of the doubt, but his handling of the transfer portal in the modern era, it hasn't gone well. I'm inclined to believe that it is just it is not a pattern that's necessarily going to continue, but it would be ridiculous to not pretend that it has gone. I mean, it's gone bad. Like their transfer portal additions last year, very few of them really worked. Zeke Mayo was good, but AJ Storr did not work out. Diggy Coit didn't really work out. Rylan Griffin didn't work out. Like they're having an issue adjusting to the modern era. And until he proves definitively, I'm going to be skeptical. Having said that, there's a lot of talent on this roster. There's young talent on this roster. There's talent coming into the program. I still think that the overall talent level is high enough for me to have them just inside the top 15. I remember distinctly when I was making these rankings that for me, like 13 through 20 were all teams where I was like, I could just kind of throw them on there in basically any order. So I honestly probably am not, my opinion of Kansas is probably not too different from yours, to be honest. There's just a lot of teams kind of right in that middle spot right now. But I'm still a little skeptical despite having them in the top 15.
Yeah, that's fair. Andy, funnily, the outside of Houston at 1, the only other team we are identical on is North Carolina at 21. I bring that up because in real time, Carolina has just landed Alabama transfer Jaron Stevenson to their front court. And so I don't know. I'm trying to process in real time if that will change where I have them. But it certainly is a great help for North Carolina's depth at the 4 and maybe down to the 3 as well.
Vasar and Stevenson in the front court. That is
along
nice.
with Caleb Wilson, the freshman coming in.
That is nice. Yeah.
Intriguing stuff there, Andy.
Yeah. Just to give you the rest of the list here before we move on, we had UCLA at 15, like we said. Florida comes in at 16, our defending champs. Arkansas at 17, the John Calipari of it all. 18, Tennessee. 19, Kansas. We talked about them. 20, Iowa State. We talked about them a little bit. 21, Gonzaga. 22, North Carolina. 23, Creighton. 24, Oregon. 25, Mizzou, Dennis Gates's club. And then teams that received, one of us picked and one of us did not pick: Baylor, Iowa, North Carolina, or NC State, excuse me. Shout out Will Wade and Illinois. Isaac, take us on to the final segment here.
Well, gang, each year the preseason top 25 comes out at the AP poll, and we make projections for which top team is not going to make the NCAA tournament. Why wait for that? Grab a Snickers and let's make it happen right now. And we'll have that conversation right after I tell you about Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trade, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 or more top brands, you'll find exactly what you need, delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? No problem. Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you're always going to talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for that extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage, and now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. Check it all out at supplyhouse.com. Okay, Andy, a conversation we always have right after the AP Top 25 preseason poll comes out is, all right, we got the top 25. Which one of these top 10 team schools is not going to make the NCAA tournament? In this portal era, it happens more regularly than it used to. Let me remind everyone of our top 10. And then, Andy, I want to know, which of these top 10 schools do you think will not make the 26 NCAA tournament? That number sounds like a made-up year, by the way. How is it 2026? Number 1, Houston. 2, Duke. 3, Purdue. 4, Texas Tech. 5, UConn. 6, Michigan. 7, BYU. 8, Louisville. 9, Kentucky. And 10, Arizona.
Well, I'm going with Arizona. And since we already kind of talked about Arizona, I won't overdo that conversation because there's a lot of the same stuff. Concerned about Tommy Lloyd's ability to get a ton out of freshmen right away, et cetera, et cetera. I will throw out a team that maybe is a bit more controversial to include here, but are we sure that all of the young talent at BYU is going to coalesce in a way to make them as good as we expect them to be? And I'm not denigrating AJ Dibansa. That dude is unfreaking believable. Nor Rob Wright, who is, he's worth $3.5 million apparently. So he was tremendous last year at Baylor. I love those two players, but I mean, I had them 6th, you had them 8th, Isaac. So obviously we both are, or I had them 8th, you had them 6th. Regardless, we are believers in this team. And I think Kevin Young's a really good coach, but we don't know for sure what Richie Saunders is going to do. Their front court was good last year, but will it be, are they going to improve on that, or is it going to be good enough in the Big 12? Like, Arizona's still my pick, but I wanted to give us another team to get some airtime, and BYU's a team that I'm like, yeah, it feels like they're going to just be kind of whisked into the top 5 of everybody's ballot by the time October rolls around. And then 2 months into the season, a lot of people I could see a reality where a lot of people are like, wow, we were a lot higher on them than we should have been. Like, it just feels like something that could happen with this BYU team, especially as we wait to see what happens with Richie Saunders.
That's the linchpin for me, Andy.
Mm-hmm.
If something changes with Richie Saunders and he's not there,
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually going to drop them pretty significantly,
Yeah.
I think, because what he will do to help draw some gravity away from both AJ and Rob Wright, I think is critical.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously Rob Wright, what he does alone can set so many guys up. But yeah, I think he is critical to that success. Obviously Dawson Baker back, Keba Keita
Mm-hmm.
back are great just holdovers, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that's massively helpful. But we got to wait and see. But I'm with you. That is at least intriguing. Andy, my pick for team to topple out of the top 10 into obscurity is Michigan.
Yeah.
I love Dusty May. I trust him more than I trust this roster. I think I will put it that way. But I already had a distrust with the backcourt last year.
Mm-hmm.
You get Roddy Gale back, but you add to that Elliot Cadeau, who was both, yes, has a great assist percentage, but is not a score guard.
I love how hard you're trying not to be a hater here. Like, I respect it. Elliot Cadeau is good, but I can understand the skepticism about the fit there. I'm with you.
Thank you.
You're not alone.
Led the ACC in turnovers last year.
Right.
Is foul prone. I mean, there's just all of that. I love Lindeborg. I think he's going to be great. We do have to like you and I were talking pre-show, like, does it translate up from UAB? We think it does. But are there times because of the lack of, like, what they had last year was Danny Wolf could create for himself and others, which it made up for the backcourt issues.
Right.
Can Yaxel do that? I don't think that's a Demara's game. So I just have some questions about all this. I think Morez Johnson coming over from Illinois helps. I think a lot of people missed what he's going to be able to do because of his injury last year. But I just wait and see, Andy. Wait and see.
Totally reasonable. I'm with. I think Mara and Yaxel could be fantastic.
Could be, absolutely.
I could see it not being as seamless as it was with Danny and Vlad, and that could be enough for them to be at least not as good as a lot of the expectations are going to be. Isaac, want to look at some kind of the opposite of this, a team that we didn't discuss, whether it was a team that wasn't in our top 25 or that didn't even come up at all, that is maybe going to be able to sneak into that top 10 conversation. And I'll start there. I was between two ACC teams that frankly weren't very good last year. One of them was horrendous last year, and the other one was still not very good. There weren't a lot of very good teams in the ACC, as many of you listening probably already knew. I'm not going to pick Miami because I think it's too early to pick Miami, and we'll have another conversation about that roster and what Jay Lucas is building over there. But I'm not ready to crown them that level yet. But let's talk Virginia instead. I love Ryan Odom. I think that he's proven very successful at Utah State, at VCU. He's had, he's I think, really well connected to Virginia. I think he's going to come in and seamlessly help start to turn this program around. And we've already seen that. I mean, in the transfer portal, they go out, they get Dallin Hall. Speaking of BYU, he comes over from BYU, and I think is a great player who's going to fit in really well in this system. Devin Tillis is an underrated, underappreciated guy. He's a top 50 transfer in this class, according to evanmia.com, comes from UC Irvine. Jakari White from North Dakota State is very, very talented as well. Sam Lewis, really good three-point shooter from Toledo. Like, this is a quality transfer portal class already that we've seen for Virginia. They're connected to some really big names in the transfer portal as well. And even by the time people are listening, this class might already be even bigger and better. And there's no returners to really speak of. So I think that is why they're a tough team to put any kind of projection on, because McNeely's gone, Buchanan's gone, Kofi's gone, so on and so forth. Data Ames is gone. But I like the early start to the transfer portal offseason for Ryan Odom in Virginia. I'm a believer in Ryan Odom. I know we said unranked team that could climb to the top 10. Top 10 is probably pushing it for where Virginia could get, in part because it's hard to climb into the top 10 if your conference isn't just chock full of quad one wins. And while I think the ACC will be better, I don't know that it'll be at that level necessarily, but it wouldn't shock me at all if there are headlines next year that say Virginia's back and that they're eventually sneaking into the top 25. And heck, maybe even all the way to the top 10. Who knows?
Andy, I'm going with, and I know we got to be quick here so we can get out. I'm going to go with Illinois. Part of this is we got the Avicic brothers teaming up. Tomislav was there last year. We've got Zvonimir coming over after his stint at Kentucky and Arkansas, now going to join his brother to headline Illinois' front court. And then Kylan Boswell, right? We expect him back to be kind of leading the charge there. I think he needs to take a step forward from his like 12-ish points a game last year. I'd like to see Boswell get up to like 15 points a game, maybe up to like 5 assists a game, which would be a very reasonable bump in both projections. But then my concern is the 2 and the 3. Like, I think they need more there, but this also is a like Brad Underwood, man. He always has that offense humming. I need Zvonimir to put some meat on those bones this offseason. I'm looking for that. But I think also this is just a like, how cool would it be to have those Avicic brothers just go off next year together? So I think part of this for me is just like a hopeful look ahead.
Yeah. Trey White is a big loss for Illinois. He goes to Kansas, which, by the way, I was talking about Kansas earlier. I forgot to mention him. I think that's an addition that I like for Kansas. We'll see if it pans out. Again, skeptical a little bit. I loved AJ Storr, and that didn't work out. But yeah, I could absolutely see Illinois being a dangerous team next year, and it would be very fun to see those two brothers have a lot of success together, especially as Zvonimir has had so many ups and downs in his career up to this point. Folks, that's going to wrap it up for us today here on the Locked On College Basketball Podcast. We're going to talk so much about these teams over the offseason. Some of them 10, 15, 20 different times. We'll have hosts from the Locked On shows on our show to kind of break down the offseason and the transfer portal moves and the recruits coming in and all that good stuff. We're so far away from the next season. We're already so excited, though. And I know that we're going to have a ton of great conversations about these teams as we get there. But again, that's going to wrap it up for us today. So as always, we want to say apologies to the Lawyer family. I don't think we mentioned him when we talked about Purdue. Let's go Wild Popes. We'll see how they do in year 2 of that era. Cheers to the McBruins, even if I am a self-described hater of UCLA at this point. And until tomorrow, peace out.